It's Ash from SuperVideos, back for another video for Season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at something that was set up in the last episode of Fear, Season 6, Episode 13, which has to do with a possible fourth crossover that might happen, and also a potential remix of a comic storyline that happens near the end of the comic book run. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break all of this down. Alright, before we get into this, as always, if you're not a subscriber and enjoyed the content by the end, consider subscribing to join our community, share and smash the like button, and press the bell to be notified when we upload. With that out of the way, let's dive right into it. Let's go back to a particular scene that was in Season 6, Episode 13. There was this little moment between Dwight and Sherry. Sherry comes clean to Dwight about why she's been behaving the way she's been behaving, and she basically decides that she wants to go back to Virginia and put a bullet in Negan's head, because she thinks that why she's not content where she is because of Negan and the things that Negan did to both Dwight and Sherry. Now, of course, at the end of the episode, we do have Sherry kind of changing her mind, but we do know that both Dwight and Sherry leave. We don't necessarily know where they go, but they do kind of leave the main group as far as we can tell. Now, one big question that comes up is where we are in the timeline. Assuming that Sherry and Dwight go back to The Walking Dead and cross over back to The Walking Dead, which I think is a little ridiculous, but let's pretend that they cross over back to The Walking Dead. Where is that gonna fall in The Walking Dead's timeline? Where is Negan gonna be at this time? I've done a little bit of looking around, and although it's not confirmed 100% and there isn't a lot of real proof to say for sure what the timeline is, it appears that where Fear is at this point lines up with around the beginning of Season 10 of The Walking Dead's original show. Again, the timelines that are out there are a little all over the place, like there's a lot of conflicting timelines that are out there, but from the best of my knowledge, the best that I could find is where Fear is right now. They are a few months to even maybe a year or two behind where The Walking Dead is right now at the end of Season 10 bonus episodes that aired. So Season 10 episode 22, which ironically was actually the Here's Negan episode. But assuming that they're like a few years behind, then that means that most likely when or if Sherry and Dwight end up going back, Negan will probably be in his jail cell, and it would most likely be after Rick disappeared, but probably before Michonne left. So it'll be around that timeline. And it'll probably be around the timeline where everyone is dealing with the Whisperer threat and all of that. So with all of that said, what do I think? Do I think Dwight and Sherry are gonna cross over? Well, on one hand, if they do cross over, it would make absolutely no sense, because even if it takes them like a few months to get there, they would still be behind the timeline on The Walking Dead. And because they are not in the actual timeline in The Walking Dead, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So because of that, I think it's extremely unlikely that Dwight and Sherry are actually gonna cross over back to The Walking Dead's original show. However, let's say that it's a situation where they do leave the group in Fear, and we see a little bit with them maybe in another medium, maybe another short spin-off, or maybe Tales of Walking Dead or something along those lines, to a point where their storyline lines up with the original show. Then in that case, if they do re-enter the story of the original show, it would obviously be around the Commonwealth storyline. And if that happens, there's a possibility for them to remix the story. They obviously have to shift things around a little bit, but they could definitely remix the story in a way where Dwight can actually get his comic storyline. Now, I'm not saying it'll be exactly the same, but it might be very similar. I'm not gonna give it away for non-comic readers, but if you've read the comics, you know that there is a very big moment that's gonna be coming up if they do follow the comics, that revolves around Rick, Michonne, and Dwight. Obviously, they're gonna need to change the characters because none of those characters are in the storyline in The Walking Dead's original show for season 11 at the moment. But if Dwight does come back, then I could definitely see him being in a position where he might end up going towards the direction where he went in the comic book, especially because of where Sherry is and how much hatred she has towards Negan and how much she's able to possibly influence Dwight. Now, obviously, if they do that, they're gonna need to bring in Negan to that storyline, so it might not be exactly the same, like it might not involve the Commonwealth leaders and all of that the exact same way they did it in the comics. It might be remixed in a way where it involves Dwight and Negan, but it could go down a similar way. And if they do that, then it obviously means that there might be a potentially huge death coming up in season 11 that's gonna revolve around the Negan and Dwight rivalry storyline that they may have set up in Fear the Walking Dead. Obviously, in Fear, it's not really Dwight that's trying to get back at Negan, it's really Sherry. Dwight is trying to change Sherry's mind, but at the same time, I could definitely see them going towards a direction where Sherry is able to influence Dwight to a point where she basically gets him on board to try to get back at Negan. Something along those lines. Now, with all of that said, there's another way that this could go. There is a possibility that we might see a fourth crossover, but not in a way where Dwight and Sherry cross back over to The Walking Dead, but in a way where Negan crosses over to Fear. I'm a little more skeptical about that. It's a little more underwhelming, and even though timeline-wise it may make sense, especially if they do a lot of time jumps on Fear, it's a little underwhelming. And I think that if they do that, they will be wasting Negan's possible storyline in season 11 and maybe even further on. And if they do decide to do that, then that makes it less likely that Negan will get his own spin-off because they wouldn't really cross him over just to have him cross over again into another medium. You know what I mean? So because of all of that, I think it's less likely for Negan to cross over. But if he does cross over to Fear the Walking Dead, then there's a possibility that they might do that storyline. So a remixed version of the Commonwealth Dwight storyline, but they might do it in Fear the Walking Dead, and it might not have Commonwealth at the center of it. It might have a different group at the center of it, but the idea of it would be the same. Like, it'll have the same energy as what happened in the comics with Dwight and the Commonwealth. So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to discuss in this video. I am interested to know everyone's thoughts and opinions. What do you think about the setup that they did in Fear the Walking Dead with Dwight and Sherry talking about Negan? Do you think that there's a possibility we might see another crossover, either Dwight and Sherry cross over to The Walking Dead or Negan crosses over to Fear, where they might be able to adapt the Dwight and Commonwealth storyline, either in season 7 of Fear or season 11 of The Walking Dead's original show? I personally don't think any of that is gonna happen. I think this setup is not really a setup, but it's a tease. It's not anything that they're actually going to action on. It's not anything that they're actually going to follow up on. It's just something to get fans talking and to start the conversation. But I do think that they're going to do something completely different when it comes to Negan's story and also when it comes to Dwight and Sherry's story. But again, I'm definitely very interested to know everyone's thoughts and opinions. So share your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to join our community and press the bell to be notified when we upload. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.